Okay. Chapter 52, Kapitel Nun Beis. This it's a relatively easy read if you look at it. Some of the psukim you need a little help with translation maybe, but it's a straightforward theme, historical even. We could pinpoint exactly where this kapitel was said, so it has a certain ease because of that. So let's go through it once a little quickly with the basic translation, and then we'll come back and go through it again. So lam natseach maskil leDavid. For the conductor, maskil, we had this word before, and the root word is seichel, but we'll translate it again when we get through it the second time. LeDavid by David. So some of you might be familiar with the biblical story, with the story of Doeg HaAdaimi. Doeg will elaborate on the story of Doeg HaAdaimi, the Edomite. When he came, Vayagid l'Shaul, and he told Shaul, right? So Shaul he doesn't like David. And Doeg comes and tells David, and he tells him, but David el beis Achimelech, that David came to the house of Achimelech. So that's the story. Doesn't go on with the story. There's no continuation really of the story here, but we'll talk about it on the second run a little bit, straight from Shmuel Aleph. And he continues, David HaMelech continues, and he says, Matisal bara, why are you boasting with ra, with evil, with bad, negativity? Hagibar, oh mighty one. Chesed, kel, kol hayayim. Hashem, the kindness of Hashem is all day long. Havois tachshav l'sheinecha. Your tongue devises trickery. Kisar melutosh. It's like a very sharpened razor blade. And that does things with deceit. You like bad, evil, negativity more than you like goodness. Sheker, falsehood, lies. Midaber tzedek, instead of speaking tzedek, right, proper. So tzedek, we translate it usually as righteousness, but from the root word of right. What's right? Right is truth. So you like to speak lies instead of speaking the right thing, which is truths. Sela. Ahavta kol divrei bala. You enjoy, you like all these devouring words. Bala literally means to swallow. Lashon mirma, tongue that is deceitful. Gam kel yitatzchol netzach. Hashem will also shatter you forever. Yachtecha v'yisachacha. He will excise you, he'll pluck you. May oil from the tent. V'sheireshcha, and your roots. May eretz chaim sela. He'll uproot those roots. Uproot those roots from the land of the living. Sela. Over here they translate sela. In the previous one, just sela. Over here they translate sela as forever. The yiru tzadikim, and the righteous will see the yiro, and they'll be afraid. It's a basic translation. You use the word awe or fear over here. V'alav yischaku, and they will laugh at him. And they'll say, Hine agever, here's the man. La yasim elikim. He doesn't make his stronghold to be Elokim, to be Hashem. V'yiftach, and he puts his trust where? B'reiv ashray, in his great wealth. And ya'oz b'havasai, and he draws strength from his trickery. But David HaMelech continues, but me, I am kizayis ranon, I am like a olive, a fresh olive tree, a fresh olive. Beveis Elikim, in the house of God. I put my trust in Hashem's kindness, Olam Va'ed, forever and ever. I will be grateful to you, Hashem, La'olam, forever. Ki asisa, for you have done. Va'akave, and I hope, Shimcha, your name, ki toiv neged chasidecha, because you do good, ki toiv, there is goodness, neged, which is opposite, there's goodness coming for your chasidim, which, as you know, chasidim, the word chassid is pious, right? Chassidim is not a new idea from the last 250 years. It's an old idea of pious, meaning someone that goes beyond the letter of the law, not just someone that is religious. So a chassid is usually someone that goes beyond the letter of the law. So that is one run through this chapter. Hold on a second. Could you bring me seltzer? Okay, let's go through it one more time, a little bit more detailed. On the top of the chapter, Kapitel Nun Beis, chapter 52. So it says like this: David laments his suffering at the hands of Doeg, and speaks of Doeg's boasts about the evil he committed. David asks, what does he think? Does he consider the doing of evil a mark of strength? David also curses Doeg and those like him. Okay, so this is this really frames where this capital comes. The first pasuk, Lam Natzeh, for the conductor, maskil LeDavid. So we mentioned, I don't remember which chapter, but there was another chapter that also started off with the word maskil. And the word maskil we talked about then is this concept that when David HaMelech wanted to say something to make sure that everybody understood, when David HaMelech wanted to say something to make sure that it was given over properly. It was a very important message. So when it's an important message, he did it through an interpreter. And that's the way most commentaries translate this idea of maskil, that it was done through an interpreter in order that everybody should understand this. Why should everybody understand it? Everybody should understand it because it's it's an important message, and the message is obvious. The message is to stay away from the idea of Lashon Hara, to stay away from saying things about other people, talking about other people that will put other people in danger, especially when you talk about someone, to someone that they don't like, so it will put their lives in danger. And that's what happened with the story of David HaMelech. So pasuk number 2 is the story. The whole story, the pasuk doesn't bring more than this pasuk. The pasuk doesn't bring more than the whole capital is talking about a story that in Shmuel Aleph runs through 2 chapters of Shmuel. Starts with chapter 21 and goes through chapter 22. And the storyline, so first of all, the Mepharshim basically say that by the time you get to Tehillim, you already learned Shmuel. Okay, not in this scenario, right? You already learned Nach. You're later on in Ksuvim, so you already learned Nevi'im, so you already know the story that happened with David HaMelech when he came to Achimelech. So the pasuk expects you to know that, and since the pasuk expects you to know that, so therefore it doesn't continue. So the pasuk does not continue with the story because it just says the highlight of the story, that when David HaMelech came to Achimelech, and that's the story. We don't need to know more than that. So what's the story, Taka? Because since I didn't go through that before, I went through it as preparing for this class. The story is that David HaMelech was running away. He was running away from Shaul. There was a town. The town was called Noiv. The city called Noiv, and this city was a city of Koyanim. And who was the head over there? The Kohen over there was Achimelech. Achimelech was there. Achimelech was the Kohen. And when he came to the town, people didn't know that there was a war going on between David and Shaul. And he asks for food. He says, "I'm on a secret mission." It looked a little suspicious. The pasuk says it looked a little suspicious to Achimelech. Why is he coming by himself? Why is David not with an entourage from the king, knowing that David was very close with Yonasan, Shaul's son, etc.? Like, why is he traveling alone? He says, "I'm on a secret mission, and I ran out of food. I need food." The whole story over there that Achimelech tells him, "I have food, but it's truma, it's consecrated, it's holy. Only koyanim could eat it." So he says, "Give it to me anyways." It was pikuach nefesh. He needed food, so it was pikuach nefesh. He asked for that. Then he asked him for a weapon, And the pasuk says that he tells them the only weapon that they have is the sword of Goliath, of Goliath, of the Philistines that David HaMelech killed. He says, "This is what I have," and he gives it to him, thinking that he's on a secret mission from Shaul. Doeg, this person referenced to here in pasuk number 2, Doeg Adaimi, he was there too, and he witnessed this whole story. He didn't say a word, but ultimately, as the pasuk says, he comes to Shaul and tells Shaul that David came to Achimelech, and Achimelech gave him food and weapons. That's what he tells him, which enraged Shaul very much. And Shaul came there and ended up killing, if I remember correctly, 85 Kohanim from that city. It was slaughtered the city basically, and a crazy story that you don't need to look at the movies. You can have it straight in Shmuel. This is only one of them. So, anyways, long story short. It wasn't Achimelech's fault. Achimelech was doing what he should be doing, and Doeg shouldn't have said what he said. Not only shouldn't he have said, he could have said it, and he could have said all the details. That's one of the key things, is that he had it in for Achimelech. He wanted to become closer to Shaul HaMelech, etc. And therefore he gave a negative report, and that's the idea of lashon hara that we're talking about here in this chapter of this. So basically, the story of Achimelech being killed, and the 85, if I remember correctly, 85 Kohanim that were killed because of this story. And if Achimelech wouldn't have said what he said, or if he would have said the whole story, meaning especially that Achimelech did it unknowingly, things could have turned out in a better way. So that is the idea over here. Now, a few things to keep in mind. This chapter of Tehillim, it seems from what I've seen from the commentaries, that King David composed it right after this story, right after the Kohanim were killed, right after the slaughter in the city of Nov. That's when he composed it, which is fascinating because he's sure that Doeg will have a downfall, and he's sure that Hashem will take care of him, right? So that's one thing you wanted to mention. The other thing, you have to also know who this guy Doeg HaDaimi is. So, first of all, he was a very learned man. He was a big Talmud Chacham. According to some, he was the Rosh of Sanhedrin. In Shmuel, when I forget the word, there's a word there that's used, and Rashi over there says that he was the head of the Sanhedrin. He was a very learned man. He was a big rabbi. He was a big Talmud Chacham, and he took the side of Shaul, and he was called Doeg HaDaimi. So why HaDaimi? So the simple translation, I'm sure in the Tehillim that you're looking at, when it says in pasuk number 2 that Doeg HaDaimi came, it translates as Doeg the Edomite. But think about it, King David HaMelech, is also called a similar name. He's called David Admoini. There's a pasuk that calls him Admoini. Why is he called Admoini? From the word Adam. What does Adam mean? Adam means red, right? He was a redhead. David HaMelech was a redhead. And so it seems that there's some commentaries that say that Doeg was also a redhead. They had a lot of similar character traits, as we're going to see throughout this chapter, that they had a lot of similar character traits. King David used it in a positive way, and Doeg used it in a negative way. And it seems that that's what bugged him so much, and that's why he wanted to get rid of David. He saw him as a peer. You know, when you have two alphas in the room, you stay away, right? Because even though technically two alphas in the room, what do you mean? They can accomplish so much. No, they can't. They just gonna fight, even though they have such potential, each one individually. But when they're together, they're gonna fight, right? This concept. So it seems that this is what was going on between Doeg and David. And Doeg really did a number on this one. So that is in short. It's a much longer story, a lot more details that are brought down in the Navi, and in all the commentaries, even more details that are brought down in the story. But that's enough for us to be able to understand this chapter, because it's mostly about David HaMelech lamenting the fact that Doeg said lashon hara, said things he shouldn't have said lies, and was more interested in destruction than positive things. So that is the introduction kind of to this kapitel. That's pasuk beis. That is the second verse here in this pasuk. You see it even in the Mam Loyes brings down that if you look in the pasuk in the second verse, so it says when Doeg the Edomite, when Doeg the redhead, or Doeg Adami, when he shows up, and it says Vayaged l'shol. Vayaged is an interesting word to use. Vayaged is not like and he said. So here in this translation that I have in front of me, it says and he informed Shaul, right? But Vayaged is more of a storyteller. It's more of that there was, so the Mamleis brings out that he added to the story. Vayaged is the word, instead of Vayomer or something like that, or Va'amar, he uses the word Vayaged is because the pasuk is trying to bring out that he came and he added to the story things that shouldn't have been there, meaning like he could have said that Achimelech didn't know, etc. Like different things that he could have said, and in order to make the story a little bit better, so to speak, and truthful things. Instead, he was looking for destruction. That's pasuk number 2. Pasuk number 3. So David HaMelech is now talking about these negative character traits of Doeg Adami. So Matisal bara, why do you boast with evil, right? And a gibar, mighty one. So gibar, it seems, according to some commentaries, that gibar he's referring to him as a gibar b'Torah, a gibar, a very learned man. And that's what Rashi actually says over here. Rashi says, why do you boast with your evil? You have Torah might. You're a very learned man. And ultimately, he says, Chesed, Kel, Kol Hayom, that the Chesed, the kindness of Hashem, is what's gonna save me. Also, Rashi brings down another pirush, because the end of the pasuk that says that Hashem's kindness is going to save me. It's David HaMelech, or David, before he became the king. He's turning now to Doeg, and he's saying, why are you boasting with your evil? You think you're going to be able to destroy. You think that if Achimelech didn't give me the food that he gave me, you think I wouldn't have lasted? You think I would have died? Now Hashem, in his unlimited kindness, Chesed, Kel, Kol Hayom, there's kindness from Hashem all day, every day. Meaning that if it wouldn't have come from Achimelech, it would have come from someone else. So don't blame Achimelech for what he did, and he didn't know. Ultimately, it's part of Hashem's kindness, and this is another way that Rashi learns this pasuk. Now, so Rashi translates the word gibar, that a gibar b'Torah, a strong man in Torah, meaning a very learned man in Torah. The Yavetz comes and says gibar, that he's laughing at it, and laughing at him. He's in a derogatory state. So you're such a strong man. You're such a gibar. Why do you have to try to beat me with trickery if you're such a gibar? Right. So that's another way to look at the same pasuk, and the same word that he's telling him gibar. There's also a medrash on this pasuk that says you're such a strong man and you're connected to the king, but you have to use trickery in order to try to kill me. This Farnu comes and says you're a Torah scholar. The pasuk is saying, Doeg, you're a Torah scholar. What's Torah? Torah is the ultimate kindness. Torah is the ultimate truth. That is the ultimate kindness. The ultimate chesed is Torah. So why tishalal bara? Why are you boasting with evil? What's the evil? Why are you being involved with ideas of lashon hara? Why are you being involved with things that you shouldn't be involved with? And that's the way the Sfarnu explains this pasuk. And then he continues in pasuk number 4 that your tongue, meaning the words that you say, are havois. They devise the trickery, and it's like a very sharp razor. So what's a very sharp razor over here? What does it mean, a very sharp razor? So all the commentaries come and say, so I saw a bunch of commentaries, so it seems like the approach to this pasuk is like this. When you have a razor, let's say you have a razor, you want to cut hair with a razor, right? Now, if the razor is too sharp, chas v'shalom, God forbid, you might cut yourself, and not just you might make a cut in your skin, not just cutting the hair. right? And this is what he's referring to. A lot of the commentaries say this is what he's referring to, that you had such a sharp razor, you thought that you're going to Reitzon, you thought you're going to get Shaul so worked up to go and run after David. So you told him a story that he went to Achimelech, but you didn't realize that with that sharp tongue that you have, you made him kill out a whole city of knife. Right? Your tongue is like a sharp razor that once it cuts, it's going to cut more than you expect. So you have to be very careful with the lashon hara that you say. You know, sometimes we say something, even the thing that we say that we know we shouldn't say it, and we know we're saying it to the wrong person. But how much bad is it going to do already? Okay, so I said something that we know it, but you don't realize. As David HaMelech is saying over here, you don't realize how sharp the razor is, how sharp the tongue is, that you say a comment like that it ended up destroying a whole city and killing so many kohanim. And that's pasuk number 4. Pasuk number 5. The Mitzudah says that there's two things over here that he's saying. That when it comes to actions, pasuk number 5 says, Ohavta Rami Taiv. When it comes to actions, you like bad, evil, negativity, negative actions, bad actions, better than good actions. And when it comes to speech, sheker, midaber tzedek, you'd rather lie than say the right thing, the righteous thing, the truth, right? So this is the way the Mitzudah says that the pasuk is saying two parts of the pasuk are saying two things. One is referring to his actions, and the other one is referring to his words. The Radak says that it's one thing, that it's lies and evil and bad that he's referring to. It's all one thing, referring to the story of Achimelech, referring to the story of him saying lies, and ultimately the story over there goes that Shaul made him kill the Koyanim, that he had to kill. It was his men didn't want to, and he made Daig kill the Koyanim. So not only do you say negativity, do you say lies, etc., also your actions are bad and your actions are evil. Pasuk number 6. Devouring words, bala, the word bala, that your words devour, swallow. So bala, it's referring to lashon hara, that's even said in a quiet way, right? Sometimes you think, I just said it to one person. I said lashon hara to one person. Daig, I just said it to Shaul. I didn't say it to the whole world. I didn't make an announcement on Facebook. I just made a small announcement to one person. And what could be the big deal about that, right? Divrei bala, devouring words, but they're very destructive even when, as we see in the story, even when said to one person. Now, the Imam Lois comes and says, in the previous verses, the previous psukim, we're talking about the negative character traits of Doeg, that David HaMelech refers to as negative character traits. Now he talks more about how he liked the destruction, how he liked destroying, and what he did, the actual destruction that he did through lashon hara. The Alshich on this pasuk says that Ohavta kedivrei bala l'shain mirma, that you like devouring words and you have a deceitful tongue. So the Alshich says very simply that you only said the destructive part of the story, right? As we said many times already, that when David came to Shaul, he only said parts of the story that fit the narrative that he wanted to get Shaul upset at David. So you only said divrei bala, devouring words. You had a deceitful tongue. L'shain mirma, you had a deceitful tongue when you said these things. And if only you would have said the true story. So now in a form of prayer, David HaMelech continues, just like you shattered the family of the Koyanim, pasuk number 7. So Hashem gam kel yitatzchal lenetzach, Hashem will shatter you forever, and you'll get, and not just you, but there won't be a continuation from your v'sheireshcha me'eretz chaim, that they'll even uproot your roots will also be uprooted. And this is something David HaMelech, as we mentioned in the beginning, even though this was right after the story, and who's on top after the story? Who's winning, so to speak, after the story? Right? Achimelech helps David. the whole city is destroyed. Doeg is on top of the world. Shaul's on top of the world, and David HaMelech is hiding out. It's afterwards he's by the Pelishtim over there, and then he amasses a small army. But this is like a little bit later. But really, who's on top of the world? Who's safe? Who's winning? Doeg is winning. But still, David is sure. David has full faith and trust in Hashem that things will work out the way they're supposed to work out, and therefore he says, "Yeah, you're on top now, but you're going to be shattered just in the same way that you shattered that city. You're going to be shattered, and you will be lost forever." Pasuk number 8.
Label, just before you go on to 8, does anybody say anything about the fact that the word Selah is at the end of Pasuk 5 and not after 6? It makes sense. It would make more sense if it was after 6, he finished talking about Noeg, and now he's doing tefillah and praising God. So why would
it's actually
why
after
would he
Pasuk
leave
7
that
as well.
paragraph?
Right. So it's actually it's after Pasuk 5 and Pasuk 7. There's the word Selah. The truth is that I've looked for an understanding in the word Selah in general in Tehillim. I've yet to find. In this case, the end of Pasuk 7, it probably means forever. Usually Selah means like point final, like it's the end of something, but I haven't seen any real understanding in the idea of Selah. Maybe something to look into, try to have a better understanding but I so far from what I've looked, I haven't seen anything, but I'll try. Usually, like I mentioned, usually either means point final, like it's the end, but then you're asking if it's the end. The end of Pasuk 5 is the end of talking about Doeg's negative character traits, and then in Pasuk 6, he talks about his destructive nature, and then continuing on that on Pasuk 6 and 7. So it is kind of like a new path that I did see in the Mamloy is separating between Pasuk 5 and 6. That up until 5 describing the guy, and then 6 kind of describing what he's done, and 7 based on what he's done saying that the same thing will happen to him. Okay, Pasuk 8. So the righteous, V'yiru tzadikim, the tzadikim, we don't even have to translate the word tzadikim. The tzadikim will see V'yiro, and they'll be in fear, or they'll be in awe, right? It's usually in Hebrew, Lashon HaKodesh, the word yira translated into English, the word yira is better translated as awe than as fear, especially when we're talking about a relationship between us and God. But in general, the idea of yira is more awe than fear. So the Yavetz over here on Pasuk number 8, he says like this, that originally V'yiru tzadikim, the tzadikim are going to see what's going on to Doeg, and they're going to be fearful. Maybe we made a similar mistake. Maybe we took the wrong side. Maybe we also went with Shaul and we didn't take David's side, and they would fear. They would be afraid that maybe they'll be punished like Doeg, but then they'll realize that they're nothing like Doeg. So v'yiru tzadikim v'yiro, that the tzadikim are going to see and be afraid, but then v'alav yischaku, but then they will laugh at Doeg because they really are not. They're not in the same boat. They're not in the same. They didn't do the same terrible things like Doeg did. That's pasuk. That's the Yavetz. Rashi says over here. No. The Metzudah says, sorry, Rashi that I have over here is for the next pasuk. Yeah, the Metzudah says that Yiru Tzadikim, that when Hashem, this is a theme that David HaMelech has in Tehillim, that when David Melech asks Hashem to do something, or when he says that Hashem will do something, when he will when he will eventually do for the righteous, etc., what's going to happen? Everybody's going to recognize it, and it's going to help their faith and trust in Hashem, or their awe of Hashem. So over here, that's the way the Metzudas explains this pasuk. V'yiru tzadikim, that the righteous, the tzadikim, will see what's going to happen to doeg v'yiro, and it will add in their yiras Hashem. It will add in their awe of Hashem. Right? When someone goes up against the wrong, it goes up against the David, and Hashem takes care of the person that goes up against him in a negative way, takes care of David in a positive way, etc. What happens? People recognize that that someone's running this world. It's Hashem that runs the world, not Doeg, not Shaul, etc. So this is also something that he's saying over here. Yiru tzadikim, that the righteous are going to see v'yiro, and it's going to add in their yiras Hashem. It's going to add in their awe of Hashem. Pasuk number 9, so Rashi says that they're going to say, what are the tzaddikim going to say? Because it says, Ve'olav yischaku, they're going to laugh at Doeg. What are they going to say? Look, this is the type of person. This is the person that puts his faith, that didn't put his faith and trust in Hashem. Look what happens to him, right? Hine hagever, here's the person, lo yasim elikim mozeh. He doesn't put his faith and trust in Hashem. And v'yiftach b'rei vashra, he puts his faith and trust in what? His great wealth. Ya'is ba'avasai, and he draws strength from his trickery. Look what happens to such a person. So that's a basic translation of the pasuk according to Rashi. And others, like the Metzudas, say it also in a similar way. There's a sicha from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1931. 1931 on Purim 1931. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe is having a farbrengen, and it's dark times for the Jews in the Soviet Union. And the Friedrich Rebbe was farbrenging, previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, was farbrenging how a person has to go on Mesiras Nefesh, on self-sacrifice for the education of their children, etc., etc. And at one point, the Friedrich Rebbe, previous Rebbe, references something in this pasuk, the last two words of pasuk number 9. And he was referring to people that boast about their, think that they have it all figured out. You think that we have it all figured out. Everything's everything's going to be good. I have it all figured out. The Friedrich Rebbe actually brings from the pasuk. He says it says Ya'is b'havasai. Ya'is b'havasai means that he draws strength from his trickery, meaning not that misgoah, that he's proud of his strength or his wealth or his brains, his seichel. Not that he's proud of something. No, that he just boasts about something. Usually, someone that boasts about something is someone that I always say, you meet an Israeli, and if he tells you I was in this and this part of the army, it wasn't true. No, I was in this secret unit. It's not true. Someone boasts about something means that they maybe he wished he was part of that. maybe it was something that he dreamed of as a kid or even as an adult. But someone that was there doesn't feel the need that they have to talk about it and etc. It's something that I've noticed over the years. But the Friedrich Rebbe says that we have to recognize where we stand. We have to recognize a person should recognize where we stand. The person should recognize where we're holding, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. Be honest with ourselves, and we shouldn't be so pompous. So Ya'is ba'avasei, and he uses the last words of the pasuk. Don't draw strength from trickery. Don't try to play games. Be honest with where you are, and when you're honest with where you are, so then you'll be able to develop, and you'll be able to go to the next step. You'll be able to get stronger in your connection with Judaism. You'll be able to get stronger in your connection to Hashem. Someone just says, I'm perfect. Everything is great. All my relationship with God is great. My other relationship, everything is perfect. Everything. That's but if we're very honest, say, this, it's good, but it could be better in this way. This is good also, but it could be better in that kind of way. And that's good, and that's something very, very important in Judaism in general. I think this is a good lesson from this chapter in general, is that what we could take out of it is that we should recognize what is something that are we just going to say, we'll just leave it as it is, or something that we could work on, something that we could develop, something that we could make better, and grow from that, instead of just putting up a strong exterior and saying, nah, everything is fine. So on that pasuk number pasuk 10. So he says, keep in mind again that this he's saying when he's still being run after. He doesn't, besides his faith and his trust in Hashem, he doesn't know what's going to be, right? But he says, I'm like a fresh olive tree, right? So Rashi says, Vani and I, even being run after by Saul, by King Saul, I'm in your hand, Hashem. And not only that, I put my faith and trust in Hashem's kindness, not just for me, forever and ever. Meaning that I'm sure, as Rashi continues, I'm sure that not only me, but my children and my children's children will follow as well in Hashem's house. Mitzvah makes it a little bit more, and he says that Va'ani, that David HaMelech is saying, I am not like Dayik. I'm not like Dayik. I'm firmly planted in Hashem's house. I'm like a fresh olive. What's a fresh olive tree? The Mefarshim say, the Radak says, olive trees are unique because they're all year, they're nice, and all year could be that you can get fresh olives. So that's the uniqueness, that it's not something that's seasonal. I don't know. I'm not an olive farmer. Definitely not an olive farmer in the land of Israel. But I could, so that's the way that Radak explains it. That way, always, all seasons in Hashem's house, and ultimately, the Chesed Elikim, I put my faith and my trust in the Chesed, in the kindness of Hashem. The Medrash says on this pasuk that David HaMelech is really turning to Daig and saying that you thought you would uproot me from the world, you thought that you would destroy me from the world, but in the end, I'm going to be sitting in Beis Elokim, in the house of the Lord, in Hashem's house, and there's not going to be a continuation of you, but for me, there'll be a continuation. Me, my children, my future generations, Olam Vod, forever and ever, will be in the house of Hashem. And the final pasuk 11, Oidcha la'olam, I'll thank you forever, Ki osisa, because what you have done, and va'akaven, I put hope, Shimcha, in your name, Ki toiv neged chasidecha, because you do good for the chasidim, for the pious ones. So which tense is it talking about? Because you have in one verse a few different tenses: past tense, future tense, current tense. So Rashi right away comes and says that that he's saying that until now he was describing what was going on. At this pasuk, he's turning towards Hashem, and he says, as the mitzvah, this also brings down that I'll thank you forever, because you have always done for me. David HaMelech recognizes that everything that happened and the fact that he's still around, everything is because Hashem has looked out for him. So for everything that you have done. Not only that, he continues, as the Radak says, Shimcha, and I put hope. That the Radak says that he says this with divine inspiration, with Ruach HaKodesh, that Hashem will exact judgment from Dayik. And the Alshich, we'll finish off with this. He says, the pasuk, that I will praise you forever. I'll praise you. Why? Because everything that you have done in the past and everything that I will ask from you in the future, the hope and the trust that I put in you is Shimcha, in your name, right? Think about davening on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Sometimes we say, Asay Leman Shmecha. Why do we ask Hashem, Asay, we're asking you for a good and sweet new year. Please do it for your name, Laman Shmecha, on behalf of your name. What does it mean? It means that it's a Kiddush Hashem, right? The sanctification of Hashem's name, when Hashem does good for his pious ones, because Hashem does good for those, for the tzaddikim, for the pious ones, and that's what David HaMelech is saying. Even if I'm not so worthy, but do it l'man shmecha, akava shimcha. I put my trust in your name, and I'm sure that you're going to save me. This is the idea. So again, the two ideas that we have from this kapitel. On the one hand, David HaMelech wants to make sure that we know how terrible lashon hara is, and why we should stay away from saying lies and saying things about other people, etc. Talking about others in general, it's not a healthy thing, not a good thing, unless you're honestly trying to help. But even then, you have to think long and hard before you say something. That's one thing. And the other thing that we see out of this chapter is David HaMelech steadfast. He's sure. He knows. He's guaranteed that Hashem will be there for him, that Hashem will save him, and everything is going to be okay. And with that, we finish chapter 52 of Tehillim. Any questions?